Hey everyone, this is the Love of Cinema podcast. We like to talk movies. If you like to talk movies too, you come to the right place.
He's waiting for her to turn up for his birthday bash, and he says something like अगर ये मोमबत्ती बुझने से पहले वो नहीं आई, and we're all wondering that something dramatic might happen after that, and then he says मुझे मोमबत्तियों से हमेशा के लिए नफरत हो जाएगी. These are the sort of charming things that happen in those in so many of those lines there.
मुझे शराब पीकर डगमगाते हुए देखकर आप लोगों को हंसी आ रही है, लेकिन अपने गिरेबान को चीर कर तुम लोगों ने कभी अपने ईमान पे नजर डाली? वो तो खुद एक शराबी से ज्यादा डगमगा रहा है. Prakash Mehra's Sharaabi is littered with such incisive and clear-eyed lines by Kader Khan. One of the many things that make the film a compelling watch, even 40 years after its release. This is Himanshu, and you're listening to the Love of Cinema podcast. But before moving on, an important reminder. If you enjoy organic conversations centered on Indian cinema, Love of Cinema podcast was created for people just like you. So if you enjoy the podcast, please do consider supporting the show. Love of Cinema podcast is my passion project. And with every episode, I've attempted to create something that cinephiles will continue to find value, not just today, but over time as well. If you find value in the conversations on the pod, please do consider supporting the show. Your support will help me continue creating content with shelf life for fans of Indian cinema everywhere. You'll find the link to support the show in the show notes. You can also support the show directly from the podcast website. It's fast, it's easy, and your support is greatly appreciated. Also, if you liked the episode, please share the episode on social media, as that will help other people discover the pod. Coming back to today's episode, Sharaabi turns 40 this week. The film had great music, great comedy, and endearing performances across the board, led by a terrific Amitabh Bachchan, winning us over line after line, written by one and the only late great Kader Khan. I wanted to do an episode on Sharaabi, a Bachchan film that doesn't get talked about as often. So I invited 3 super fans on the pod to chat about Sharaabi and what makes it special. Alok Sharma, Diptakirti Chaudhuri, and Shiva Krishnamurthy are not only huge Bachchan fans, but they also rank Sharaabi among their favorite Bachchan performances. A bit about the 3 guests on today's episode. Alok Sharma is a writer and director who has worked on a variety of shows, films, and animations. He has also created cutting-edge graphic novels. Diptakirti Chaudhuri has authored several books on Hindi cinema, including one on Salim Javed. And in his own words, he does marketing by day and movies by night. And Shiva Krishnamurthy is a seasoned sales and marketing honcho who is also one of the biggest Bachchan fans that you will ever run into. The 4 of us had a ball chatting about Sharaabi. We touched on everything from the genesis of the film, to Kader Khan's writing, to Bachchan's performance, to the film's memorable music. We also talked about a bunch of other stuff, like the karobar and the parallels with Animal. Here goes. How's everybody doing?
Hey, hi Himanshu, hi Dipta, hi Shiva. So good to be here.
Great, great. I'm so glad that we are doing this on a movie that doesn't get talked about too much. But I particularly like this movie, and I think the music is legendary. I'm so glad to have all of you here. Dipta is such an authority on, 70s and 80s and 90s. So I'm glad to have him here. And Alok, I know you're a big fan of Sharaabi and Bachchan, so you're here. And then Shiva's here, who is, a huge, like he said, a fanatic, a Bachchan fanatic. And so I'm glad to have him on board as well.
Thank you. Happy to do this and can't wait to dive in.
So, guys, Sharaabi turns 40 next month. And I was thinking, if we could start chatting about this movie by thinking about what makes it special, because this is a very different kind of Bachchan movie, and I remember once listening to a Rajnikant interview where he said that this is his favorite Bachchan movie. And he was actually not too happy about Sharabi not doing as well as Coolie because he
Yeah.
thought that this was a far better Bachchan performance. And so it's just interesting, how this movie has connected with different people across generations over the years. Another thing that I find fascinating about Sharabi is that, if we think about the movies from 70s and 80s, Bachchan movies, Bachchan usually played the outsider, right? He's the guy who had to work his way up from the bottom, the guy who takes on the system. Here, however, he's playing someone who comes from a place of privilege. It's a very different kind of a setting, for a Bachchan film. And so I thought, maybe, hey, this is turning 40, we should do something on this. How do you guys see Sharabi?
Yeah, you're right about the character. It's not a quintessential Bachchan character. And if you think about the movie, it doesn't even have that much action. It has, maybe we can pick that up later, but it has one of the most interesting action sequences in which he retrieves goods that were stolen by a
Yeah,
few
yeah.
people, and he does it the way the character would do it. So it's really cool. But the character is, like you said, maybe it's a poor little rich boy or is an eccentric, golden hearted, someone who craves love and stuff. So yeah, it's a very different character now that you mention it, with the teen bamboos of his tambour being Sharab, Shairi,
Munshi ji.
and Munshi ji, which incidentally the regular Prakash Mehra sidekick wasn't there in this. Ram Sethi wasn't the sidekick.
Ram Sethi has actually, by the way, Ram Sethi has a very small, very tiny role in the film. He
Oh, really?
introduces Jayaprada's character on TV. Before that, Dede Pyar
Right,
De
man.
happens. The female Dede Pyar De, female version of Dede Pyar De, Ram Sethi is there only for a few seconds.
Maybe as a luck
Pyare Lal ji.
thought, I guess. Oh, is he actually called Pyare Lal
No, he
in
is not called Pyare Lal ji, but he just comes and introduces Jayaprada's character for that TV
Yeah.
thing. And Amitabh Bachchan leaves and tries to find Jayaprada's home where he meets Sudhir and the rest of the meets these characters. एक आप है और
Yeah.
एक वो चार थे हराम के
Yeah.
टक्कर.
Yeah, and there's also an element of pathos about his character. So yeah, Himanshu, you're absolutely right that it's a very un-Bachchan like Bachchan character. Yeah.
Actually, what I was thinking is that when Himanshu, you said that it is very different, it never struck me that way because I always saw that all of Prakash Mehra's characters, I mean Bachchan characters, barring maybe Hera Fairy, are very similar. They are like that slightly almost self-destructive person with an element of some sort of a chip in the on their shoulder, and they are like uh, for one obsession. Now, in Mukaddar Ka Sikandar, it was love for someone. In Sharabi, it was probably attention of his father. Likewise for Namak Halal, Zanjeer was this. So I always saw these characters as very similar. Now, it's very interesting that you saw it as an insider, so to speak. And I mean, there are lots of insider characteristics to it also. But the way he approaches his father, how he fights for the rights of the workers, and takes on his industrial father, it is I mean, I thought of it as an outsider character.
Interesting. Yeah, that's
Oh,
certainly a way of looking at it.
I felt this is a whole spectrum of प्रकाश मेहरा बच्चन का जो एक शुरू होती है ना स्टोरी जंजीर से उसका स्पेक्ट्रम यहाँ पे आके ना ऑलमोस्ट पूरा हो रहा है. Zanjeer, he's a complete outsider. Then I think Muqaddar Ka Sikandar, he's someone who's accepted in a particular, एक सोसाइटी में एक्सेप्टेड है, दूसरी सोसाइटी में उसका एक्सेप्टेंस अभी नहीं आ रहा है, एंड हियर इज एक्सेप्टेड बाय एवरीवन हियर. एक्चुअली you might shoot me for saying this, but I felt this is like Animal of its time. He's
Dude,
vying
there are
for his
so many
father's.
similarities. Yeah.
Yeah. He's vying for his father's attention,
Yeah.
and
Totally.
he's got
Totally.
he's so loaded with money that he doesn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
He's constantly वो अपनी जर्नी में 50 लोगों के साथ अच्छा करते चलता है, which is very Arabian Nights kind of a thing. Very again, it's very very core पुराने जमाने का mythology story where the hero keeps doing good stuff and everything comes back and pays him at the end. And he never did that because ये लोग आके वापस उसके लिए कुछ अच्छा करेंगे, but it's like चींटी को खाना खिला दिया, पेड़ में पानी डाल दिया, ये किया वो किया, and everything came back together to save Sinbad in the end. That kind of a story, which I really liked. And this apparently is the least successful Bachchan Prakash Mehra film, collection wise.
Even less than Jadugar?
Jadugar is a flop, no? Jadugar is
Okay.
not
least
a successful film, right?
Right.
Least successful. Jadugar to bombed, which actually happens to be one of my favorite Prakash Mehra Bachchan film. Actually, when it comes to Prakash Mehra Bachchan, I'm a little partial. I'm more on Prakash Mehra Bachchan side than Manmohan Desai Bachchan side. I mean, I love those films, but if I have to pick between Prakash Mehra Bachchan or Manmohan Desai Bachchan, I'll always go for Prakash Mehra Bachchan because there was one cerebral farce going on in those films, all of them. कुछ एक चल रहा होता है उसके बीच में, you have this bizarre thing happening. वो हेरा फेरी में बार बार हेरा फेरी में ना टकराता है असरानी से, वो वापस आके बैठ जाता है, और वो जुए वाला सीन है यहाँ पे. दैट एक्शन सीन दैट शी वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट, ये चारों के साथ में सुधीर और वो पूरे गैंग के साथ में पब में एक्शन सीन. आई मीन, एंड कि ये राइटिंग में नहीं हो रहा है, ये ना मतलब बच्चन इज जस्ट गोइंग ऑल आउट एंड क्रिएटिंग अ सीन एंड यू आर जस्ट वाचिंग इट. यार क्या मतलब मजा आ रहा है इसको देख के, बट इसको लिखा क्या होगा, क्या ही लिखा होगा इसमें. He keeps repeating, he keeps doing हजार things, and everything is like so well structured and made ना कि वो scene बैठ जाता है अपनी जगह. That's where again I'll say Animal, because Animal का ना every scene एक अपने आप में उसका एक beginning middle end है हर scene का. So every scene आप पूरी फिल्म याद रह नहीं रहा, एक scene जब आपके दिमाग में आता है ना उसका एक beginning middle end आपको याद रहता है. That's what happens in Sharaabi. Any scene you think of Sharaabi, they all fit together and make a film, but वो ऐसे भी निकाल के देख लोगे ना तो एक सीन अपने आप में पूरा है, मुकम्मल है. एक जगह पे शुरू होता है, बच्चन जा रहा है लड़की का घर ढूंढने, उसको बंदों ने लूट लिया, उसने गाना गाया, पुलिस वाला आया, हंस के चला गया, ये शराब पीने गया, यहाँ वो चारों उसको मिले, उसने अपनी सारी चीजें रिट्रीव कर ली. वहां पे मयूर मिला, जूनियर बच्चन. फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम बच्चन एंड मयूर आर शेयरिंग स्क्रीन. आई थिंक उससे पहले तो मयूर वाज ऑलवेज प्लेइंग जूनियर बच्चन, एंड वो उसको पढ़ाई के पैसे देके चला जाता है. सो देयर इज अ प्रॉपर, वो अपने आप में एक शॉर्ट फिल्म है उतनी सी.
Yeah, it's interesting. You brought up Animal because I'm willing to bet even money that Wanga is a huge Sharaabi fan.
But, should be.
Yeah, because I mean, there is almost one-to-one mapping. I mean, there is the Shakti Kapoor's character is very much like Munshi Ji's.
Munshi Ji, yes. I was actually, when watching Animal, I was like Shakti Kapoor को थोड़ा और बोल रहा था, जब क्योंकि spoiler alert, when Munshi Ji dies, I mean.
Right.
It
And
just
the
breaks your
whole
heart, man. Huh?
Yes. And another thing I was thinking about when this struck me that hey, there is a lot of similarities with Animal is that whole Ranbir scene of that outburst, right, where he asks Anil Kapoor to be his son, and I mean I can imagine like Bachchan doing that in his prime, like and totally killing it. Can you imagine like Bachchan bringing his energy and his personality to that scene? I mean, just imagine.
सुनाई दे रहा है, बहरा नहीं हूं मैं, अगर आप आंख बंद करके सोचो तो बच्चन की लाइन है वो.
जी. So it's very interesting, yeah. And there definitely influence on Animal. Shiva, would you like to add anything? I thought you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think the dad bit is certainly one aspect, and he has these, and it's almost like when he's talking to Munshi Ji, it's like he's thinking aloud, right? So when I think during the one of the early sequences, he says, uh, I think some Markan Singh or somebody, his butler, his man Friday who gets his drinks. He says, क्या तुम्हें कितनी बार समझाया है कि बोतलें जब खाली हो जाती हैं तो उन्हें फेंक देना चाहिए or something like that. And then enter his dad says, क्या तुम नहीं जानते कि खाली बोतलों की भी कीमत होती है? And then he says that देखा मुंशी जी, इन्हें बिजनेसमैन हो तो डैडी जैसा, उन्हें खाली बोतल की कीमत के बारे में तो पता है, लेकिन उनके बेटे की जिंदगी जो एक खाली बोतल से भी बदतर है उसका एहसास नहीं होता. So that whole thing of talking to Munshi ji and actually voicing his thoughts is a running probably motive through the movie, like when he runs out of sharab, when he leaves the house, says something like इतना मैं नहीं, मैं खाने में जितना हम छोड़ दिया करते थे. So he tells that to Munshi ji again. So
like इतनी भी मैं मैसर नहीं, मैं खाने में जितनी कभी छोड़ दिया करते थे पैमाने में.
that's right. That's right. And when whatever he tells Munshi ji is actually what he's thinking. So that's like a running motive through the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was reading, how this movie came about. Apparently, Bachchan and Mehra were on a world tour in 1983. And it's interesting the timeline here. When Prakash Mehra suggested, that they should do a film based on a father-son relationship, where the son is an alcoholic. 2 years earlier, Arthur is, out, and Arthur is a huge hit. Dudley Moore and Liza Minnelli romantic drama. And it's pretty much the same premise, although the movie is much different than Sharaabi. But it's essentially about a spoiled alcoholic man-child, who's an heir to a vast fortune. And it's about his adventures. So, I was thinking, how they must have come up with the idea for Sharabi. But I gather, and I'm not sure about this. So, when I say something like this, I want to make sure that this is true. But is it true that Prakash Mehra also had a alcohol problem?
I mean, if the gossip magazines are anything to go by, there was this Sharabi and Mard came released around the same time, right? 84 and 85.
Right,
And I
right.
believe the taunt was that only a Mard can make a Mard and a Sharabi can make a Sharabi. So if you believe that, then it is probably true.
So there was this taunt going on. That's what I've heard. I've also read in some film magazine long ago that Manmohan Desai said कि only a Sharabi can make Sharabi and a Mard can make Mard. And then Prakash Mehra retorted कि only a Kuli can speak like this. So
Yes,
पता नहीं उसमें
yes.
सच्चाई क्या है.
Yeah, I don't know. I even suspect Manmohan Desai said something like that. But like Shiva was saying, the gossip
Actually,
magazine.
there is a very interesting story I read in the mid 90s, which is probably Bachchan's first biography. And funnily enough, it is in Bengali. Right. And they talked about that, like you said, that they decided to make it on a father son story. And then this alcoholic angle came in. And a very interesting thing is that Amitabh Bachchan pointed out that a Sharabi means an alcoholic. It's not a drunkard. So he has very famous drunken scenes. I mean, whether you look at Naseeb or Amar Akbar Anthony and all of that, he has these famous drunken scenes where he plays to the gallery. Now, I also believe that Amitabh Bachchan of the 80s is one of the underrated actors. So we never pay attention to his craft. But when I read that, how he talked about, that doing this role, he said that, look, an alcoholic person speaks with a lot of pauses. He drags the words, letters, he fumbles for words. So the same lines or the same amount of dialogue, if it takes, let's say, 30 feet to take a filmy thing, if it takes 30 feet of film, it'll probably take 50 feet of film to, say the same dialogue when an alcoholic says it. And Amitabh Bachchan said that, you need to have your dialogue very crisp and short because I'm going to ramble. I'm going to just go off on a tangent the way alcoholics do. And so I thought that it was surprisingly, I mean, many people tend to dismiss him as one of the, uh, the singing, dancing, fighting actors of 1980s. But this I thought was in a typical, uh, in whatever sitting or wherever this happened, it was a very prescient way of analyzing that character and analyzing how, let's say, not a drunkard, an alcoholic would act.
Oh, yes, yes.
Incidentally, another piece of trivia was that Amitabh Bachchan was teetotaler around this time, and he had gone off smoking and drinking for a very long time, and coincidentally, it was on the night of Hera Fairy premiere. They had apparently a phenomenal party with the star cast of Hera Fairy, which ended, I do not know what, I mean, how bad it was. But Amitabh Bachchan decided the next day morning that I'm not going to smoke and I'm not going to drink. And he never did from then onwards, which must have been the late Hera Fairy was, I think, 77, right? So from then onwards, he never smoked or drank.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I thought it was after his accident, which is why when he did
That's what-
Sharaabi, he
That's
was
what I
actually
thought too. After his
teetotal.
hospitalization, I thought.
Yeah.
I always thought it was after 82 car accident. Yeah. This is an
Yeah.
amazing piece of trivia.
So did I. So I had read this many years back. So when I just reread it recently, I was also surprised at this memory that coincidentally it was a Prakash Mehra film where he stopped having sharab.
Man, I wish I was a fly on the wall at one of those, drinking nights with Mehra and Bachchan. That must have been something. But guys, we got to talk about the writing of this film because so much of what Sharaabi means and has become over the years is Kader Khan's writing. I mean, we all know that, right? Kader Khan had a command of over the language. He had a command over turn of phrase and all that. I personally am a big fan of those Bachchan moments where we can tell that the dialogue was written by Kader Khan. Not only because of the language and the turn of phrase, like I said, but also because you can literally imagine Kader Khan in your head saying those lines when you see Bachchan delivering them on the screen. Those moments give me goose flesh every time. For example, the prefatory passage to O Satire from Mukaddar Ka Sikandar, that Bachchan delivers on stage. You can literally see in your head that how Kader Khan might have said this, in front of Bachchan and Mehra. And then Bachchan does, equally well. So I'm a big sucker for those kind of moments. And those moments are just littered in Sharaabi. I mean, the dialogues are great. And Shiva, could you do one of those dialogues for us? Because this is your talent. So instead of me saying those lines, it might be better.
I don't know whether it's that kind, but one of the kind of lines that Sharaabi has is bad shairis, right? Because he's supposed to be a bad poet who probably doesn't realize it, and he's got his cronies around him who do the wah. So there are so many of these bad shairis that are said, and only Bachchan could have pulled this off because you just get it that it's not a good shairi, but still it's being told seriously and all that. So right from the entry sequence where शराबी को शराबी नहीं तो क्या पुजारी कहोगे, and गेहूं को गेहूं नहीं तो क्या ज्वारी कहोगे, that those kind of shairis. And going back to your earlier point on this character being a slightly different one. So, in fact, I remember as a child watching Sharaabi in the Plaza Cinema of Bombay, Dadar. And there is obviously an anticipation of an Amitabh entry, right, in every movie. And here it's set up like a quintessential entry because when he's driving past people and he drives past these guys and they're saying, "Arey Sharaabi," they say something about him. And then he reverses the car and gets out of it. And you get a feeling that he's going to get out and bash these guys, right? That's the typical expectation. But it's kind of anticlimactic. He comes in, laughs in the way that this character laughs. I've never understood the word. It's another Prakash Mehra favorite, by the way, Samkya. keh ke lagana or something like that. I guess it's some kind of an artificial laughter, which
कह
this
कहे लगाना,
character. Sorry, say that again.
कह कहे लगाना, कह कहे.
Yeah, I guess it means artificial laughter or superficial laughter. And this character is full of that. So he, instead of stepping out and bashing the guy, he does one of those kahkas and then breaks into these bad shairis and continues हम पास क्या बस के लिए रुके हैं सब पास कल का अड्डा बंद हो जाएगा or something like that. And he says stuff like कहाँ पास्कल रास्कल के चक्कर में अपनी अंतुड़ियां खराब करते हो, दिन भर धूप की ताप से जलते हो, रात भर पास्कल की शराब से जलते हो. And these bad shairis are just delivered so incredibly well. And then he gets into this self praising kind of mode. It's really, really good. And I mean, I don't know whether these are those quintessential, you can tell it's Kader Khan, maybe yes, now that you think about it. But just to pull off a character like this, which is very anti or anything but quintessential, who's eccentric, who is romantic, who is defeatist, who's got pathos, who's almost silly at times, is it's just amazing. I mean, you can't even begin to imagine anyone else in this character. It's just unthinkable.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, and there is a great mix of that, like you said, bad shairi, and there's some also very deep, writing, that Kader Khan has done here. There's so many dialogues, I've written a few here in my notes, but I love that little exchange that he has with Jayaprada at the end of the song, Intaha. And Bachchan says that आजकल के दौर में हंसी की फजल उगती कहाँ है मीना जी, या तो दीवाना हंसे या तू जिसे तौफीक दे, वरना इस दुनिया में आके मुस्कुराता कौन है. And such great lines. I mean,
So what Kader Khan was doing now was taking a lot of couplets that were already there in common conscience and tweaking them for this film. That's what I like about the dialogues. Most of the Bachchan dialogues are shares that are already there in the in your conscience if you read Urdu शायरी and stuff or अगर शेरो शायरी आपने देखी है. But वो शेरो शायरी को ना he Bachchanifies it, Kader Khan, and then Bachchan owns it. Okay, and then there are like smaller moments also कि वो अकेला पूरा ऑडिटोरियम बुक करके बैठा हुआ है. जयप्रदा comes sunafies him and then is like कि मुंशी जी वो आप क्या बोलते थे. मुंशी says कि बड़े बेआबरू होके तेरे कूचे से हम निकले, वो निकल के जा रहे हैं. And then she says सुनिए, and it's like और भी आप और भी कुछ सुनाने वाली हैं. And then he laughs like crazy कि मैंने क्या जोक मार दिया है basically. So he's owning all his bad jokes, all his bad lines. But when he's speaking to his father, जहाँ पे वो करोड़ों का नुकसान कुछ करवा के आ जाता है ना, बस्ती का पूरा कागज वागज जला के आ जाता है. और he looks at प्राण and says कि पूत का पूत तो का धन संचय, पूत सपूत तो का धन संचय. एंड प्राण looks at him कि क्या बोल रहा है तू. एंड then he explains the दोहा कि अगर बेटा कपूत है तो भी पैसे बचा के कोई फायदा नहीं, और बेटा सपूत है तो उसके लिए तो बचाने की जरूरत ही नहीं. So explains that. So it's very literate writing where Kader Khan has written all his dialogues and Munshiji's dialogues in quotable quotes, like all of them. In fact बहुत जगह बहुत बफूनरी वाले डायलॉग्स भी हैं ना, या कुछ इमोशनल डायलॉग्स हैं उनको वो बफूनरी में करके चले जाते हैं. जैसे when Jayaprada tells him she's lost that नौलखा हार, तो he says अरे वो तो नकली था ये वो, and she gets angry and she leaves, and मुंशी जी comes and is like मैंने पैसे देके खरीदा था, वाह ये तुमने क्या कर दिया, असली हार को नकली बता दिया. And then he says कि उनके एक एक आंसू एक एक मोती के जैसे थे, एक एक लाख के, एक आंख से दो गिरा, एक आंख से दो गिरा, करते करते ही टेक्स इट टू 12 आंसू, ऐसे 12 लाख के आंसू थे मुंशी जी. एंड कि ये लिखा भी होगा ना, ये ऐसा तो नहीं होगा. ये that entire exchange between Munshi ji and Amitabh, Om Prakash and Amitabh, makes it go somewhere else. They both own almost all the dialogues, and Om Prakashify and Bachchanify the Kader Khanism of the dialogues. That's what I like about this film, where everyone is going full throttle. The performance saying the dialogues, will be Vicky Babu's dialogue or Munshi's dialogues. Even though both are written by Kader Khan, they both sound so different. So that's
Yeah.
something I feel is phenomenal in this film.
Yes, yes. You can tell there is a lot of improv going there. I mean, with the lines. And I've read this too, that, Bachchan always used to be a little wary of Kader Khan's long dialogues. So he wanted him to like break it down into like shorter ones, so because he used to think that it should connect with everybody, right? You don't want to make this like a huge shairi session or Kavi Sammelan or something like that. And so he used to improvise a lot. And especially in Prakash Mehra's film, I think there are a lot of like expository, dialogues in Mukaddar Ka Sikandar as well, and even in Lawaris, I think. So those bits, he definitely improvised a lot.
Also, Prakash Mehra was very shairana, na? Matlab, all his songs, if you
Gee,
see, matlab, Kabira Khada Bazaar mein mange sabki khair, they take that and they make Hum Bande Hain Pyar Ke Mange Sabki Khair. So they are taking a lot of doha, a lot of shero shairi, and making a Bollywoodized version of those lines. I mean, I too learned about Kabira Khada Bazaar mein much later in life, but I always knew Hum Bande Hain Pyar Ke Mange Sabki Khair. So when you have a director like that who has some grasp over poetry, they'll always bring in that magic कि इसको खराब करना है शेर को तो कितना खराब कर सकते हो. When you work with someone who understands शायरी ना उसको खराब भी करेगा तो वो उस जगह ले जाके खराब करेगा कि आपको देखने में मजा आएगा. It won't go the babbar शेर space. Never go into that space where you are mocking a share. You're mocking the character. You're never mocking the share in the film. That's what I like about it. I recently watched it and I was like, ये बहुत मेहनत करके किया हुआ काम है. ये accidental कुछ नहीं है इसमें.
yes, yes, absolutely. And there are like great throwaway lines too. I mean, Shiva mentioned about that fight sequence, at the bar where he confronts now those gang of goons. And there is a line there where he says, "Ishq aur election mein aisa hi hota hai. Kabhi tak milta hai, to kabhi takta." And it's actually a throwaway line, but it fits right in there. So it's very nicely done.
I mean, they're not wasting a single line when Bachchan is on the screen is what makes this film so special. I mean, as a child, when you were watching it, when the manager dekha to mere khayal se I was what 3.5, 4 year old, right? And the film ran for like quite some time, so I kept watching it. Kabhi koi ja raha, kabhi koi ja raha. So you're constantly going with them and watching the film. Ended up watching the film some 12, 13 times. So you don't remember most of these things when you're watching it as a youngster, as a 3, 4 year. आपको वही याद आता है कि मुझे हो तो नथु लाल के जैसी वरना ना हो. And you come back with that line, like ये क्या killer line. But as you grow and as you revisit the film, you realize that every single thing is there's sometimes we accidentally भी pebble जाके fit हो रहा है सब जगह पे. So it's one of those beautiful accidents in terms of writing, at least I would like to say. Also, like we were discussing, this was the year of Kader Khan. Top 3 films, yeah. Tofa, what was the
Maqsad is
other
that.
one? Maqsad, Sharaabi. All 3 of them are Kader Khan films. All 3 of them, I think, had Jayaprada in them. All 3 of them had Bappi-da's music. Yet everyone is getting praise for Sharaabi. No one. I mean, okay, Tofa has its own fan base, and Maqsad I haven't watched, so I don't know much about it. But think about it, Kishore Kumar getting Filmfare nominations for this film. Like all 4 nominations are Kishore Kumar. Bappi getting 3 nominations this year, but winning it for Sharaabi. Everyone, I mean, other than Bachchan, I think Bachchan के और रिलीज थे इस साल में 2 थे शायद. Inqilab and this one, right?
Incisive and Sharaabi, 84.
To think, I mean, how much Kader Khan was working? Was he like constantly writing on his flight? How was he continuously churning out dialogues, man? Dialogues after dialogues after dialogues. And every dialogue is quotable quote. And not just Sharaabi, like वहाँ पे भी चल रहा है कुछ तोहफा में भी चल रहा है, यहाँ पे भी चल रहा है. कुछ 5-6 फिल्म तो कर ही रहे होंगे उस टाइम में, और उसके अलावा 5-6 करके आ रहे हैं. So as a writer, I don't know, मतलब writer's block को Kader Khan block होता होगा.
Kader Khan, absolute genius, writer. And allow me to plug a prior episode we did on Kader Khan here for the listeners. If you haven't listened to it, please do listen to it, where we talked about mostly his writing more than his acting. Sukanya Verma joined me on that episode, so we did a small tribute to Kader Khan. So if you love Kader Khan's writing, his dialogues, do check it out. But coming back to Sharaabi, it's Alok. It's interesting what you said about how, and this holds true for all Bachchan films. When you're a kid, like for example, at least with me, I was more closer to, or the Bachchan films that spoke to me obviously were like Naseeb, Coolie. And at that, there was a phase like well until in my teens, or even after that, I would say in my 20s, when Sharaabi was probably, if you ask me, my least favorite popular Bachchan film. The writing and everything really did not connect with me at that time. So to be honest, and then slowly, as you grow, you start seeing these movies again and again, and you start realizing the depths of the writing or the plot and even the acting. I mean, Bachchan's performance, we will talk about that. So Sharaabi is one of those films that has grown on me over the years, over the decades, and from going to from my least favorite, popular Bachchan film to now, one of the films that I'm really fond of. So, it's I guess it's an arc that happens when you grow as a person yourselves.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, Alok, you were talking about that sequence before the title song, and that conversational dialogue buzzy, if I could call it, is so good. Like you mentioned, kya sunenge, ab bhi kuch sunana baki hai. That kind of a bit of a banter is just so good. कभी जाने को कहती हैं, कभी आने को कहती हैं, all that stuff is really good. क्या ये तो आपने बहुत गहराई वाली बात कह डाली, इतनी गहराई में तो हम कभी गए नहीं, ऊपर ही ऊपर तैर के निकल गए, or something like that. And in many ways, this one, the title song of Sharaabi is probably a sort of a sequel to Salam Ishq Meri Jaan. It's almost like part two of that song where the dancer starts it, and then after Amitabh's entry, it just goes to another level of exhilaration from a viewer's perspective. And his entry into both the songs they're like almost a different song. They're quite dramatic. They have this Kishore Kumar sing really at his best and stuff. Yeah, lots of parallels there.
So Salame Ishq ka na there's this meme that I remember. I don't know where I saw it. I should have saved it actually. So the female voices singing and everything is happening, and some cooking is happening over that. And then Kishore Kumar enters, and that pan catches fire. I was like, Kishore Kumar.
Oh man, I love it.
And it's like Kishore Kumar taking the song somewhere else. And that happens with Hero here as well. I was listening to the song yesterday only. I was watching the film, and I just thought of that meme. I was like looking for that meme. I should have saved it. That Kishore Kumar comes and he takes the song somewhere else. You don't even remember what the actual song was. कि मुझे 9 लाख मंगा दे रहे or whatever. लोग कहते हैं शराबी माने के बाद this becomes something else. Yeah.
In fact, the song is known as that. I think even in the records and all, I don't know whether it said मुझे 9 लाख था और लोग कहते हैं मैं शराबी हूँ, which is actually some in the middle of the song, which is, you're right, it just goes to a different gear.
Yeah, that song is just, and like you said, that particular piece is just fire. I mean,
I think we have a lot of such songs where stage mein the girl is singing and the song changes. Avara has one, then Guide has one. Dipta, if you can add more songs to this list, I don't know. I mean, these two I can think of where
there are actually this like two songs, which is that classical Nasir Hussain trope. Actually, 3-4 songs like हम किसी से कम नहीं, or even later जो जीता वही सिकंदर. So it is like that. It's like two songlets coming together. And I mean, actually, there is something to be said about Kishore Kumar, that his getting into the that mood of the character. So if you take something like that, Inteha Ho Gayi Intezar Ki, that also is the typical, that drawling, rolling of his words and all of that, to show that an alcoholic person is that tiredness, the impatience, but at the end of the day he's also drunk. So that whole thing comes together really well. I mean, Kishore Kumar was operating at a different plane. I mean, surprisingly, I did not like the Manzile Apni Jagah Hai, for which he won the Filmfare Award that year. That is not a big favorite of mine. I really like the other two songs really a lot.
Inteha Ho Gayi Intezar Ki again goes into a very different space where that guitar riff comes and Jayaprada enters. It becomes some other
Yes,
song. Like
yes.
these are like again two songs crammed up to become one. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that since we segued to the music, let's talk about the music and the lyrics as well, because that's such a huge part of Sharaabi's legacy. But first, a question to all of you: would you guys pick this over Mukaddar Ka Sikandar as the greatest Mehra Bachchan soundtrack? I wouldn't, but I know some would.
Yeah, it's a tough one actually. It's a tough one. I would probably still pick Mukaddar Ka Sikandar. Yeah, I would pick
Yeah,
Mukaddar.
same here.
Yeah. I was just saying that, of course, this has a great soundtrack, and I was thinking about, again, one of those build-ups and a slightly anticlimactic, because that he's waiting for her to turn up for his birthday bash, and he says something like, "Agar ye mombatti bujhne se pehle wo nahi aayi," and we're all wondering that something dramatic might happen after that, and then he says, "मुझे मोमबत्तियों से हमेशा के लिए नफरत हो जाएगी." These are the sort of charming things that happen in those in so many of those lines there. And you're right, Alok, that every line is really it's a punch. It's an anticlimax, or it just surprises you pleasantly all the time.
This is like somewhere, Destiny knew this is, one of the last times Bachchan and Kader Khan are performing at their 200%. Let's give them a big bang of sorts. So you'll always remember this is the epitome of Bachchan Kader Khan performance actually. But coming back to the music, Himanshu, I don't know, man. I mean, Mukaddar Ka Sikandar is intense, but I have a very special place for Sharaabi's songs in my list. Also because these were the songs that who, you know they stayed with me in many ways till I was like from I was 3 years old to I was 10. So Mukaddar Ka Sikandar, yes, I back then I used to love the title track. चित्रहार वगैरह में आता था बट फॉर मी मंजिलें अपनी जगह हैं इज आई नो दीप्ता डिडंट लाइक द सॉन्ग बट it's one of my most favorite songs मंजिलें अपनी जगह हैं even in terms of lyrics it's killer like डूबने वाले को तिनके का सहारा ही बहुत and all those things that Anjan Saab has put in those lyrics. And as a child, as a 3-year-old, 3.5-year-old, when the movie came out, even Piga Chuha, Sari Whiskey is like Tom and Jerry in your Amitabh Bachchan song, man. I mean, it's fun. It's fun. You learn about other things when you grow up and like, nahi yaar, oh Saathi Days, kya killer song hai aur kya lyrics hai aur ye sab hai. But while growing up, De De Pyar De was a song that we all danced to. I mean, I remember ki all the Barats had that was a quintessential band party song. Amitabh Bachchan also calls all the band walas in that male version. It was a quintessential band party song, and it played. I think it still plays in all the Barats. So that song has some alag energy. People might call it कि नहीं यार ये उतना classic नहीं है उतना थोड़ा चालू सा song है. But दे दे प्यार दे, I think I lived that song for almost till I was 6. तो 3 साल तो मैं उसी song के साथ था. So it's a very special album for me, Sharaabi. Will I exchange it for Mukaddar Ka Sikandar? I don't know. But O Saathi Re And if I have to compare Manzile Apni Jagah, I still play Manzile Apni Jagah more than Wo Saathi Hai.
Okay, gun to your head. Intaha ho gayi ya Salame Ishq?
Salame Ishq yaar. Any day. After that meme to chance hi nahi hai.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. I mean, I would pick Mukaddar Ka Sikandar too, but I think Sharaabi is very close. But I'm very partial to Mukaddar Ka Sikandar because it's not only my favorite Prakash Mehra film, it's one of my favorite Bachchan films, it's one of my favorite Kader Khan films. It's probably my favorite Devdas iteration. And so I've always had a special place in my heart for Mukaddar Ka Sikandar. So I would never pick Sharaabi over Mukaddar Ka Sikandar as far as
You cannot. The thing is, Kalyanji Anandji and their, the programming that Kalyanji Anandji had, such a rich programming of instruments. Yeah, I mean, Mukaddar Ka Sikandar came out in what, 78, 77, right? And you had Before You music, in which they used that Salamesh ka harmonium and tabla, where M.F. Hussain ka cartoon and M.F. Hussain ka cartoon is painting and someone's playing, Zakir Hussain ka cartoon is playing tabla and M.F. Hussain is painting Before You music on the screen, and that music goes so well on that. And the music is so rich. When it comes to Kalyan Jananji, the music was somewhere else. Yeah. I mean, the arrangement was so good. Things were so different. And it always, I mean, after Shankar Jagishan, I don't think anybody used to do this kind of rich arrangement. A little bit Lakshmikant Pyarelal, but Lakshmikant Pyarelal का एक अलग तरीके का arrangement था, and Kalyan जी आनंद used to go all out. I mean, 100 साजिंदे हैं तो 100 साजिंदे बजाएंगे उस गाने को.
Absolutely.
99 पे नहीं, हाँ 99 पे नहीं खेलना है उनको, सारे 100 पे खेलना है, right? So obviously, I mean, as an album, Mukaddar Ka Sikandar is somewhere else. Overall,
yeah.
Even the sad version of Rote Hue Aate Hain Sab, there's no music there, but the song is like somewhere else.
Yeah, even the programming and arranging of Pyar Zindagi, I mean, it's like crazy.
Oh.
When you put it on in headphones, even today, and you listen to a really good version of it, it's crazy. I mean, and obviously there are influences and everything, and we'll talk about that too. So, but let's get back to Sharaabi.
I'm saying even if there are influences, if you are performing at that level, I'm okay with everything.
Yeah, and then again,
sounding
what
good
is not influenced, in this world? Everything is influenced. So,
Pyar Zindagi, I think it's as much the drama outside of the song as it is the song itself is kind of dramatic but coming back to Sharaabi's album, I think the chart buster was definitely De De Pyar De. It was, I guess, the number one in all the Geet Malas and stuff. And the most meaningful might have been, or the award-winning kind of song might have been Manzile. But Sharaabi actually thrives in the in-between song, like Intaha Ho Gayi, for the reason that Dipta mentioned. The sheer singing, I think, and of course the performing. Then the title song, we talked about that. And Jahan Charyar is a whacked out song, and in many ways the character Smita Patil makes a brief appearance in that song, and the look of the character, the drunken husband fighter wife, that bit, that look has been almost exactly replicated in the Jadugar Padosan Apni Murgi. That same thing. It's a sort of a sequel there. But yeah, I think the album probably thrives in the middle of the award-winning one and the popular one. These three songs are quite amazing. And Jacharya is a riot. It's nothing less than a riot.
Actually, it's based on the tune of Jahan Charyar Mil Jaye. That part is taken from a Bengali folk song, which is probably so. It was in the 80s. It was extremely popular in Calcutta, at least. It was sung by Runa Laila, super popular in Bangladesh, and at that point in time, she was also making strong inroads into Bollywood. So it was an exact replica of that. But that Tom and Jerry part, what Alok called the Tom and, that was like the that was something very different and unusual in Hindi film. It's like a skit kind of a thing with these tukbandis and things like that. It is slightly childish in thing, but it's meant to be that. It's like telling a joke, right? Uh,
But
uh,
that is Prakash Mehra's signature
Absolutely. Yeah.
thing. I mean, from Hasina Maan Jayegi, where he has that Mere Desh Ki Ladki and all those things. And I think almost all his movies had this one chota sa piece that was backed out. That was almost MTV before MTV. And जहाँ चार I would like to add कि वहाँ समझ में नहीं आता ना where Kishore Kumar leaves the song, Amitabh picks. Where Amitabh leaves the song and Kishore Kumar picks. It's so difficult to understand कि कर कैसे रहे हैं, because it just segues into each other's voice, yeah. Easily, मतलब वो ऐसा भी नहीं लग रहा कि कुछ effort लग रहा है. मतलब if the actor is maroing effort or the singer is nothing. It's like Amitabh Bachchan sings Kishore in Kishore Kumar's voice, and then it becomes Amitabh Bachchan's voice, and then it again becomes Kishore Kumar's voice. That was like insane.
Yeah, I mean, you combine that, like you said, with the gift that Kishore had, for essentially sounding like the actor on screen, and it's almost indistinguishable that who is singing which particular couplet or which particular lines. My favorite song has to be though "Intaha Ho Gayi." I mean, I love that song, and again, I know the Antara is a straight lift of the runner by 3 degrees, especially the guitar riff. But man, that slow mo portion where Bachchan and Jayaprada just go off on that dance floor. What an iconic Bachchan moment. I mean, it's like glorious 80s unfolding in front of you. Slow motion, and it's like it's 80s trademark, it's trademark Prakash Mehra. It's a Bachchan moment, and it's just magical. I mean, every time I see that song, that moment just works like 100% every time for me.
My favorite moment from that song is the moment Jayaprada enters. There's this guitar piece,
Oh, yeah.
and Mukri Chandrasekhar and everyone is Mukri's mustache bend करके देखते हैं कि कौन आ रहा है. It's so funny every single time, man. It's so funny. I mean, I know they all have, Natulal ki mooche and all. But every time you watch that movie, you'll forget that. And then Mukri will remind Amitabh Bachchan that आज विकी बाबू आज सबने मेरी जैसी मूछें लगाई हैं. And then he notices सबने लगाई हुई हैं. And you also realize, oh, मैं भूल गया था ये तो मतलब this. I watched the film like 1,000 times, but I keep forgetting till Mukri reminds that everyone is in that Mukri mustache. And when they bend and Jayaprada enters the song, for me, that is the most magical moment in that song.
I think including that big bottle of.
Oh, yes. I love that scene.
Yeah.
The huge white horse whiskey bottle with the mooch.
And the background, even the background score in that scene where he says, Natulal ji, aap khade ho jaiye. It's like, Chote Malik, mere se koi galti ho gayi, and there's tense music, which nowadays, reality show judges use. And then, it converts into a joke ke aap khade ho jaye, to aisa lage kam se hum do sharif aadmi baith ke baat kar rahe hain. I was reading somewhere that Bachchan wasn't very happy with the background score of the film. While at that point, I think the score is like really good. It intensifies the moment and just goes into some other tangent.
Yeah, he actually has some good moments with Mukri, and he's also been, well, not quite a sidekick, but he's been part of many iconic Bachchan movies. And here, I think there's a scene when I think the some 50,000 rupees मांग रहा है doctor operation के लिए, and the roller coaster of that sequence is amazing. I mean, it has the casual stuff like छोटे मालिक मत कहो बड़ा मालिक नाराज हो जाएगा, and you don't know who he's talking about. Is it his dad or is it the Almighty? It's like just left to imagination, and he suddenly breaks into what seems like it's going to go into melodrama, but pulls out and says कि मैं वहां खड़े रह के कहूंगा friends, Romans, countrymen, मूछे हो तो नथुलाल जैसी. This thing of a build up at that anti-climax it just happens at the most unexpected moments. These turns are amazing.
And that reminds me that scene. There is also Dinesh Anand in that scene, and the supporting cast is so great. I mean, even these small, character actors. Om Prakash as Munshi Ji. I mean, who plays kind of a father figure to Vicky. And the way Prakash Mehra used, Om Prakash for the emotional core, even in Janjeer, it like I remember talking about this with Dipta when we did the Janjeer podcast. That particular bit, it's a small role, but it works like wonders. I mean, it hits you like a thousand bricks. When Om Prakash talks about his, dead kids, and same thing over here. I mean, the emotional core is so well. Handled by Prakash Mehra, with Bachchan and Om Prakash. And of course, Pran, the great Pran, who of course was an actor for all seasons. Although here I thought like his role is probably not as well, edged out. It's he also doesn't have too many lines. So I thought, maybe Pran's role could have been a little bit more edged out.
So I think that the purpose of his character, I mean, is to provide the sounding board for Bachchan's lines. Like he comes and, it's like throwing the ball in the air so that, Bachchan can hit out. So that Khali Botal wala line which Shiva talked about, or in that boardroom when Amitabh Bachchan is talking and Pran just leaves midway. All those scenes are under baked from a Pran point of view. You can say that why is this guy being so adamant or completely brutal with his kid and all of that, because for a large part of the film Pran is the villain. I mean, it's only towards the last one third that we see other people taking advantage of the situation. But let's say when you think of a character that who actually used to feed his child brandy to like make it sleep, that's like I mean, it was pretty shocking in the 80s. Now it's like positively criminal. But it was pretty shocking. Even I remember when I first heard this, I was like thinking, man, what a, asshole kind of a feeling. Okay,
Crazy,
so
yeah.
his role
But
is a little like that.
but there used to be. I mean, I grew up. My initial years were in Odisha. The people, make the kids lick opium, so the kid will sleep and the mother will work. A lot of kids became addicted just because of that, and we know like a lot of people in a small village who are still doing that. So I think कुछ ब्रांडी वाला भी कुछ रहेगा जहां से कादर खान ने इंस्पायर होके वो लाइन ले ली होगी. And that is like first five minutes of the film.
Correct.
That's what you like. बाद में आ रहा लाइन. पहले ही बता दिया कि आपने बरांडी पिला पिला के राय साहब.
Which is the standard Pran way कि brandy पिला दो.
No, but Pran also has one scene that I and my brother generally, जब हम लोगों का बकवास बहुत ऊपर चली जाती है उस समय में भी ऑलवेज से विकी को तो आदत है मजाक करने की. It's like
Yeah,
So-
that's Swayamvar sequence, right?
हाँ. And
Yeah.
how well that is written. Swayamvar sequence, everything is fine, but then Kader Khan plays with the name of the characters. कि सेठ गोरे उनकी बेटी का नाम है काजल. Then there's this paper king. उसके ऊपर जोक मार के निकल जाता है अमिताभ बच्चन की बच के रहिएगा कोई किसी ने हाथ मारा तो फट जाएंगे. Then कोई दारू वाला होता है उसको मिलता है. Then like all the names are so bizarre, and that's where like Kader Khan is like, okay fine, ये गांधी गेट के लिए I'm writing these dialogues and they are going to have so much fun with just the names of these characters, you know.
And that scene is probably the sequel of the Namak Halal Makhi scene, where he's just
Yeah, yeah,
going to one person after the other, and even was Seth Talwar ki naak and Seth
Yeah.
ki rodi mal ki mooch ka baal, and
It's like that Raju Hirani thing, na, कि I need to have one जादू की चप्पी in this film. What will be my
Right,
जादू की
right.
चप्पी here? So it's like यहाँ पे वो मक्खी वाला सीन करना है, बट कैसे करेंगे? तो स्वयंवर का सीन डाल देते हैं. और बाप बेटे में अभी झगड़ा हुआ है पिछले सीन में, राइट? बट लेट्स डू स्वयंवर. एंड स्वयंवर में फादर इज
Yeah.
आल्सो सॉफ्टी की विकी की तो आदत है मजाक करने की.
No, actually,
So
if you see that same, I think Inqilab released the same year or the
Same
previous
year,
same
year.
year,
same year.
same year.
Yeah, but I mean, like the Lawaris and the Sharaabi scenes were comic, but in Inqilab, the last climax where Chief Minister Amarnath he reads out that whole list of the various criminals and general corrupt people becoming ministers, it is written exactly like that. That you were
Yeah,
responsible for this food adulteration, so you are the food minister. You are Chauthi fail, so you are the education minister. So that slightly hard hitting, I mean, in your face satire is
yeah.
was a thing. Kader Khan was doing a lot at that point.
But I mean, what I also like about Prakash Mehra films and most of the films of this time is that entire Talwar wala scene that we just discussed on about Namak Halal. It's actually a take on a Panchatantra tale, right? So they are going back to the roots. They are taking things, taking stories that are there in common conscience of the general public, and now उसको पूरा मसाला डाल के let's Amitabh Bachchan and fight. I mean, in Panchanatha, I remember reading that scene where a monkey has a sword and he actually chops the Raja ka naak. Now it's Amitabh Bachchan, so he won't really chop it. But solution क्या है ये Shashi Kapoor wants to sell his hotel. Amitabh Bachchan doesn't want the hotel to be sold. So let's put that Panchtantra wala game and let's resolve that scene in a comic fashion. It's there. It's like a pattern in most of the films of that time where that the writer knows exactly where he's taking inspiration from. It might be a Panchtantra. It might be some old joke. It might be some folk tale, and they'll convert that, and that thing gets mixed to the main story in such a beautiful fashion that you won't even mind it, even if you know the source material. Or maybe there are times when you have to, put two plus two together and realize, oh, ये तो वहां से उठा के इसको ऐसा कुछ कर दिया इन लोगों ने घुमा दिया. So that was the beauty of most of these films. Like Amitabh Bachchan is quoting everyone from Ghalib to Kabir to everyone in the film, but in his own fashion. And that's, I mean, when you start writing and when you're struggling with your dialogues, you go back and watch these films and like कि क्या flow है इस आदमी का यार, मतलब साल में 6-7 फिल्म कराई है आदमी, and he's being quoted, he's writing quotable quotes after quotable quotes. So how much has he read? And that's the magic of Kader Khan. And I would say that's also the magic of Prakash Mehra. If you watch any of his interviews or if you read any of his interviews, he keeps quoting, couplets from here or a dua from there. That is the beauty of a literate man making a film.
Yeah, you
And then
can tell
Amitabh Bachchan,
just
of
from his
course. I
films.
mean, दून स्कूल से आएगा तो बोलेगा ये फ्रेंड्स रोमन कंट्रीमैन और उसके बाद मुझे तो नथुलाल के तरफ चला जाएगा डायरेक्ट. That I don't think is a Kader Khan line. It's very Bachchan line.
Yes.
He always take a riff on those lines and come back to one silly ender.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
mean
can.
that combination of Western sophistication and son of the soil appeal, no one else can do it. It's just so seamless and so natural that Alok is right, and I think that line is a good example of exactly that.
Yeah, you can
I
tell
mean,
in
in
Prakash Mehra films that he was well read, he was well exposed to different forms of literature, and you can tell that from just like watching his films. And of course, I mean, a lot of it comes from Kader Khan and the writers and everything. But even in the way, like Alok was saying, that he has this signature trademarks, of kind of putting twists, riffs on like classic tales, folk tales, or classic literature, and that all comes across in most of the Prakash Mehra films. I think, like even the lesser ones, if I may say so. But yeah, that definitely I agree with you.
like for me in my head, if I'm thinking Kader Khan preparing for Sharaabi, he's just going back to his home. He's looking for all the Sharaab related quotes, nice quotes. He's looking for all the Sharaab related poetry. And he's saying, okay, fine, I have my raw material here. Now I'm going to, Bollywoodize it, and I'm going to, make it audience friendly. An audience who doesn't know who Ghalib is, who मीर तकी मीर से सबको लेके मैं मिला वला के एक मस्त डायलॉग्स बना दूंगा. दैट ऑल्सो हैपेंड इन द सॉन्ग्स. एक्चुअली सॉन्ग्स हैव सम रियल नाइस लाइंस, एंड के सोर्स कहीं और है. ये दे जस्ट took something from the source, उसको मीटर पे बिठाया, and then they created these songs. नशा शराब में होता तो नाचती बोतल is not really the lyrics. It's the source materials from somewhere else, but it comes and fits so well over there that you don't mind. Yeah, you're like in love with the line, and the way Kishore Kumar is singing and then Amitabh Bachchan is performing on the lines. Nobody cares. वो बोतल को नचा भी देते हैं तो मतलब पूरा लिटरल भी कर देते हैं. बोतल आके गोल गोल घूम भी रही है सीन के अंदर. सो जिसको नहीं समझ में आ रहा है उसको भी समझ में आ जाएगा. अच्छा ठीक है, ये बोला है आपने.
How do you guys rate this Bachchan performance?
Yeah, among his best, I'd say, one of the things about Amitabh is that he makes even the most stupid things look credible. And many parts of Sharaabi may not have aged well, but the credibility that he brings into to it, I mean, how and I love what you said, Himanshu, about it's not being a quintessential character, and that's what sets it apart and puts it. Definitely, I would say it should be in his top 10. Yeah, I would. And the other thing about Amitabh and Sharaabi is just how nice he looks. In the full movie, he's wearing a jacket pretty much almost throughout the movie. They're like, even when they show the kid, when he's not yet grown up to become Amitabh, even he's wearing this coat and jacket and all that along with with Munshi Ji there in tow. I think almost the entire, probably 90% of the time, he's wearing a jacket in it. So he's very well turned out compared to, say, a Lavares, where he's a bit of an urchin, and Namak Halal, where he's a waiter, or Mukaddar Ka Sikandar, where he's a half gangster of sorts. But here, I think he's just so well turned out, and I think I think this is the last movie in which his hair probably felt like a mane. It was nice and luxuriant. After that, I think it all fell off or whatever. But if you look at Sharaabi, the way Amitabh looks is itself quite special.
Actually, just taking off from what Shiva said, that in the 80s, one of the things that happened after Coolie was that uh, a mix of things, that Amitabh Bachchan became so big and such a strong guarantee of success. I think many of the filmmakers uh, many of the films at that time were pretty lazy. It's like saying ki just put 5 songs, put 3 action scenes, etc. So in that context, Sharabi did not tick all the boxes, which is why probably did not do as well. I mean, there was the fight. I mean, I remember when I saw it as a teenager the first time when it released, I was disappointed. Ki saying itna fight to nahi tha. That you expect Bachchan to do certain things. His comedy was a little, it was, uh, I mean, I hate to use this word, but it was like all drunkard jokes, drinking jokes happening, So let's say what I was expected to, what I saw in, let's say, a Khuddar or a Kalia, they were like more all-round entertainers, or the masala mixes were more there. So to that extent, Sharabi was a disappointment then. I mean, for a 12, 13-year-old kid, it was definitely. But I found Amitabh's performance to be flawless. And this is true for many of his films at that point in time. I mean, one of the films I really dislike is Desh Premi. I just felt that Manmohan Desai took it to, I mean, a caricature kind of level. And what is he making my hero do? I mean, that was my feeling when I watched Desh Premi. But it's very difficult to fault Amitabh's performance. Like when he's like tied up in that barbed wire by the Britishers and all of that. At one part of your brain says, what the hell is happening? And then you say, oh my God, this guy is like dying. That I mean, thankfully, the lines of Sharabi were very good. So what he was talking, his whether his altercations with Pran or those pseudo shairis, or the even the comic lines between, let's say, Jahacharya and all of that, they were all very well written. So Amitabh had a lot of meat for him to ply his trade. So to that extent, he was fantastic in it. I mean, for me at that point in time, the film was disappointing.
For me, this was my introduction to Amitabh Bachchan, actually. Okay, so the film will always remain very special for me, very special to me. But when now that I've watched his almost entire filmography, I think this is the last great the Amitabh Bachchan movie. The the rise that started from Zanjeer, that hits a plateau over here, somewhere around. After this, you have all sort of Mard, Kuli, and the likes. And then from there it goes into that K.C. Bukadia space, Aaj Ka Arjun, Lal Badshah, and all those films. Then Amitabh becomes, Amitabh. Here he's still 50% Amitabh, 50% Vicky Babu. And
Yeah.
he
But Alok, there is
feels
also the
getting.
3 films he did with Mukulanan in between before he.
Oh, that's different. That's like
Yeah, that's a
second
different
inning.
Bachchan.
This is the ending of that Zanjeer wala inning.
Right.
After that,
The young angry man. Yeah.
Hum is like my number one Amitabh Bachchan movie, to be very honest. Right? Hum, Dawn, Sharaabi, exactly in this order for me. But here, this is the end of Zanjeer era where you have Zanjeer, you have Chupke Chupke, you have like Amitabh Bachchan doing almost every goddamn thing, and you're loving almost all his avatars. You're ready to let go of some lazy writing also in Amitabh's movies. But like Dipta said, around Sharabi, now filmmakers know that Amitabh ko le lenge to kuch bhi ho jayega. But having said that, I revisited Jadugar recently. I feel it's very well written film. I honestly feel it's a very well written film. वहाँ बीच बीच में कुछ कुछ चीजें हैं. It's very episodic in its structure, but it's a very decent Amitabh Bachchan film that deserves a little more love than what it has got. उसको प्यार ही नहीं मिला वैसे तो
Maybe I should
उसको
revisit
थोड़ा
it.
दे प्यार दे होना चाहिए उसका. हाँ, जादूगर. Because I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it last time when I watched it. I don't remember when, but it was fun. So that's what I'm saying. Here, Prakash Mehra, Amitabh Bachchan में किश कम है, fun ज्यादा है. Manmohan Desai mein na, what happened was it was fun, and then it became kishy and kishy and kishy. So you have like Mard, you have Kuli, you have Ganga Jamuna Saraswati. I mean, उसके बाद वो कोई एंड ही नहीं है उन फिल्मों का. वो एक अलग जगह पे जा रही है. बीच में अमिताभ डज अकेला, बीच में अमिताभ डज समथिंग एल्स. देन मुकुल आनंद कम्स एंड सेज कि ओके, we have an Amitabh Bachchan and we need to know what to do with Mr. Bachchan. So Mr. Bachchan को उनका पेडिस्टल देख के फिल्म बनाते हैं. So that pedestal was there. यहाँ पे ना पेडिस्टल वगैरह का सीन नहीं था. जंजीर से चलते 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 जो प्लेट्यू हिट होता है शराबी में आके, एंड शराबी एंड बच्चन इज एन अर्नेस्ट परफॉर्मर. You give him like the worst written lines and he'll still make them sound a little better. I always feel, I mean, कितनी खराब फिल्म होगी, अमिताभ बच्चन अपने स्टैंडर्ड से नीचे जाने में थोड़ा सा टाइम लेते हैं. बहुत सारे एक्टर्स ना वो स्टैंडर्ड ही गिरा देते हैं फिल्म का. खराब फिल्म है तो वो अमिताभ बच्चन अर्नेस्टली अपना काम कर रहे हैं. And that's what I also feel about Om Prakash. No matter how bad the film is, when Om Prakash is on the screen, you'll pause, you'll watch, you won't change the channel, right? Om Prakash, when he cries, he makes you cry. Like I remember, there's this film called Parivar in which I think there's Om Prakash, Jitendra, and all these people. It was on Parivar News, and so Om Prakash has like a lot of babies, and he kills someone, and Adalat man, he cries. Even if I watch that scene today, I cry. It's very heartbreaking to see an old man. It's such a friendly, lovely looking old man crying. And Om Prakash brings that pathos to any character that he's playing, even if he's Daddu and वो अमिताभ बच्चन आ रहा है, बोलता तुम मेरे दद्दू नहीं हो सकते, वो रनिंग गैग है फिल्म का. स्टिल योर हार्ट गोज आउट फॉर ओम प्रकाश. यार ये क्या देख रहे हैं और क्या हो रहा है इसके साथ. Even here, matlab, you never expect him to die in this film, right? That not only breaks Vicky's character, it also breaks you as an audience. कि यार ये क्या हो गया? ये तो नहीं देखा था. ये तो नहीं होना चाहिए. So
Actually, Om Prakash is one of those very strong actors. He has done a
yeah,
lot of comic roles. So you tend to fall into that trap that when you are doing a serious role, audience kind of laughs. When you are
हाँ,
delivering a very emotional dialogue, the audience will read kya kar raha hai and all of that. But Om Prakash held that really well. Like Zanjeer, you said,
yeah,
Himanshu,
Zanjeer.
even in this scene actually has a lot of comic lines. It has a lot of emotional lines also. So it's like a mixed bag in that sense. But you feel sad at the sad places, and you laugh at the right places. So that to that extent, he just held that audience really well.
Yeah, I
The
really
craft
like
of
this
all these
Bachchan. Sorry,
actors,
go
the
ahead.
actors were really strong. In the 70s, 80s, you give them a throwaway line. I mean, all the Om Prakashes. I mean, I'm not considering Pran. I mean, Pran I'm considering him as a lead. But let's say if you take Om Prakash and Ittekar and all of that, they just held the audience really, really well.
Yeah. Like Om Prakash and Bachchan in a scene, there's a lot of give and take, and you can see both of them are ये balloons क्यों जा रहे हैं? So you can see both of them are not trying to eat each other up or don't not trying to कि मैं इसको इस सीन को मैं खा जाऊं. Like two very सधा हुआ actors, and they are it's like almost like a really beautiful game of tennis.
Yeah, yeah.
कि वो खेल रहे हैं वो लोग उनको मजा आ रहा है उस सीन को करने में एंड यू नो कि देयर विल बी टाइम्स व्हेन मेहरा वोंट बी सेइंग कट इट्स लाइक सीन चल रहा है तो चलने देते हैं कहां तक जाता है देखते हैं राइट एंड व्हेनेवर यू आर डायरेक्टिंग एंड देयर आर टू एक्टर्स हु आर प्लेइंग ना यू डोंट से कट यू आर लाइक होने दो मैजिक चलने दो मजा आएगा
Yeah, you're enjoying that tango between two seasoned actors,
या
right? So let's just let the camera roll. I really like this Bachchan performance, because the way I see it, I think this is round two of the functional alcoholic that Mehra and Bachchan did. The first being Mukaddar Ka Sikandar. And even that performance I'm a big fan of. And I think here, Bachchan kind of hones in more on that act. And if you think about it, this kind of a character, it can easily go off the rails. I mean, either it can become way too melodramatic, or even for that period, yeah, way too melodramatic, or it can be plain old like hilarious, when unintentionally. So, Bachchan kind of strikes a good balance, I think. And going back to Alok, what you were saying about the comedy, it's very interesting to me that today we look back on the Bachchan and Manmohan Desai canon as Bachchan's comedy, but the comedy that Bachchan did with Mehra, I mean, I love those bits. I mean, some of the probably, I asked you to pick your top five comedic Bachchan moments. I'm sure, there will be more moments from Prakash Mehra Bachchan films because Namak Halal, Lawaris, Sharaabi. I mean, some of that stuff is just hilarious. Shiva was
Hera
talking
Feri.
about that action sequence.
हेरा फेरी यार हेरा फेरी
Hera Fairy, yeah, absolutely.
yes
And even Jadugar for that.
yeah
Particular,
yeah
I'm not a big
जादूगर
fan of the
there's
movie.
this no there's this sequence in which she's वो नाक से बात करता है उस सीक्वेंस में कल्याण जी आनंद जी कुछ
Ah.
बोलता है उस डायलॉग
Yeah, yeah,
दो
I
दो
know. He
हाँ
takes the kila and he
टोनी नाक अपना में टोनी नाक पेंटी में वो सब करता है वो उसमें इट्स सो
I mean,
फनी
by
यार
the way,
इट्स सो फनी
he does that act even in Khuddar before the अंग्रेजी में कहते हैं. It's that style of talking, and I know exactly what he's got these very thick glasses.
नेजल ट्वैंग हाँ थिक ग्लासेस द
And-
सेम लुक दैट ही हैज इन चार जहां चार यार इन दिस
Yeah, and
So
he
it's-
goes to. I mean, he's a magician trying to outsmart another magician. I mean,
Ah.
that's the vibe of that scene that you're probably talking about. And there's that नाच मेरी राधा जरा जोरों से नाच वो गाने के पहले है शायद. I think that's what you're
It was
talking
very-
about.
So I always feel it's very cerebral farce. It's farce. Everyone in the team knows कि कुछ तो बकवास कर रहे हैं हम लोग. अब उस बकवास को ना इतना दिल लगा के कर देना है कि वो it stands out and it always did in Prakash Mehra Bachchan wala space. Door Do Panch is not Mehra, but he was a producer, I think, on that, right?
I don't think so. I think it was a South Indian. वो हाथी मेरे साथी वाला producer था शायद.
They were films. That Shashi Kapoor, Amitabh Bachchan, तूने अभी देखा नहीं?
Yeah.
That those lyrics are by Prakash Mehra, if I'm not wrong. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
Mr.
lyrics
Mr. Netwarlal is not Prakash Mehra, मतलब not directed by Prakash Mehra, but
I think
it was produced
Natwarlal is probably
produced by Mehra.
podcast, but anyway, yeah.
No, I'm just thinking of the best comedy scenes or comic scenes, or these cerebral farce wala scenes in with Bachchan. So these are the films that come to my mind actually. But yeah, मतलब है यार, अमर अकबर एंथनी में भी scenes हैं, ऐसा नहीं.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. That's I mean those films are classics. I don't want to take away from them.
Naseeb has some really crazy scenes.
Naseeb is my favorite Manmohan Desai film.
Onwards, 77, 78 onwards, each of Bachchan's films has one of these, marquee
sequences,
comedy kind of a thing.
Yeah.
इसमें एक दारू पी के कुछ होगा, या फिर like if you remember that Khuddar, there is the scene where he teaches Parveen Babi to wear a sari or to cook, and
वो अंडा सिर पे फोड़ लेती है.
वो अंडा सर पे, those were like very orchestrated ki we will laugh kind of a thing, and Amitabh does pretty, he placed the gallery really well on those ones.
Yeah, but it's an asset to have a performer like Bachchan there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what you said about his earnesty, I think that's the key to his longevity too. I mean, that man is still lighting the screen on fire for that exact reason, Alok, I just checked, Do or Do Panch, I suspect it was by the same guy who did Khoon Pasina.
Khoon Pasina, yeah. Rakesh Kumar. Rakesh Kumar was Mehra's
Prakash
assistant.
Mehra's assistant.
Rakesh Kumar was Mehra's assistant.
Yes.
So वो मतलब
Khoon Pasina was
by so is Mr. Netwarlal.
So is Mr. Netwarlal, yeah.
Yes.
So we were doing an episode on Mr. Netwarlal once. You can remove it from the podcast. So,
and how can we talk about Sharaabi without bringing up the bar in the trunk, car's trunk?
I've seen a car like that once.
Really? Was that inspired from Sharaabi?
This is not an uncommon thing in Delhi.
I saw that in Bombay.
I have seen it in Delhi. I have seen, that sized. Like if you have a Honda City, then this is the right bar which will fit there. This, if you have something else, it is. And the Delhi has a name for that. It's called Karobar.
So I've seen one such car at a friend's place. It was a filmy Eid party or something. And this guy doesn't serve alcohol or anything. Party. So another actor came, and the entire party just लोग vanish हो गए party से. I was like, क्या हुआ? I went down to see कि हो क्या रहा है. So the guy who had come had a bar in the diggy. Like, अरे तो शराबी का scene है. So that's when I saw, and it's all very proper lit and all, ना? Like LED lights रख के, a beautiful looking bar in the diggy of the car. Karo bar.
Yeah, I think that the title sequence, right? That Chaudhuri Enterprises presents, and somehow VAT 69 was always the ultimate
yes
of Bollywood. So, and that would stand out even from that Karo bar.
If you made it in life, you drink VAT 69 and smoke 555.
Indeed.
ऐसा कुछ है?
No, that was like the 70s, trademark. Like everybody used to be smoking 555, and VAT 69 was like the poison of choice for most made people. Guys, what do you make of the happy ending of the film? I mean, do you think the movie would hit hard if Bachchan died at the end? And I say that half jokingly because, there so many of Bachchan's hits are where, he dies at the end. And there was always this kind of a pop culture, I think, like an, legend that if Bachchan dies at the end, usually the films work.
With Munshi Ji gone, I think it's not that happy an ending, to be honest.
That's a good point.
It's a bittersweet ending. I mean, this guy will never be the same, right? So I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of happy ending of Sharabi, but it's one of those. I used to see a lot of 90s ka Hollywood movies always had this one chota sa crack that you leave the theater with. यार ये रह गया यार ये मर गया ये हो जाता तो अच्छा लगता. So that is there in this one. Okay, Munshi is not there. So you're like, okay, things are not the same.
Yeah, that's interesting. I find it very hard to imagine a sort of tragic ending for Sharabi. It was because it was an eccentric sort of a movie, right? So I think with that quirkiness and that eccentricity, I find it very hard to imagine something like a tragic ending.
Yeah, same. I think that the whole 70s, 80s trope was like a lead player died as a quote unquote punishment or a when you were the third angle of a love triangle kind of a thing. Whereas this was clearly a guy who was misdirected. He was a victim of his circumstances, even though rich and, partially misunderstood, partially at odds with his father and all of that. So he was never a redemption issue. He was always like saying ki ye acha aadmi hai. I mean, he was definitely very good at heart and all of that. So to that extent, I think it was natural. I mean, film had lot of other not so popular elements. So if on that Amitabh died, I'm not sure what would have happened to its commercial prospect.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, Sharabi did a golden jubilee. Yeah? So it was a successful movie in an absolute sense. But yeah, versus other benchmark.
Yeah. I think it was the fourth successful movie in 1984 or something like that.
Fourth in terms of
in the 80s and 90s that the films were routine, like Shahenshah was a huge grosser, but it was called a flop because it did not make as much as it was not a flop, but it was disappointment or whatever the trade parlance is, because it did not make as much as people thought or people expected Bachchan movies to make.
Also, if you look at the budget of this film versus the money that it made, it's the third most successful film of the year. Raj Tilak ka budget बहुत ज़्यादा था. So Raj Tilak made a lot of money. So in terms of money, yes, Raj Tilak is number 3, I think, in 1984, and Sharabi is number 4. But looking at the budget versus the grossing, Sharabi is number 3 actually.
Yeah,
Again, you can actually say Sharabi ka jo era hai wo almost it's almost the same what's happening right now, that a lot of South Indian films are getting remade and they are making more money than most of our superstars movies, and people are saying कि scene change ho raha hai, and things are changing and all those things. Well, that's what was happening even back in 1984. Is it Tofa and the other one, what's Mukaddar, right? No,
Himmat
what's the
wala
second? Himmat wala Maqsad. Himmat was before this one, I think. Tofa was before Himmat was before. I'm confused. But this year was of Tofa. The Tofa is there, Maqsad is there, Inqilab is there. Inqilab is there. Raj Tilak almost looks like a remake of a South Indian film, actually, if you watch it. And Kamal Hassan was there, I think, in that film, Raj Tilak, right? So you had that the same thing that is happening right now. Okay, all either stars from South India, now we call them pan India stars, are coming and making films in Hindi, or South Indian films are getting remade in Hindi and are making more money than most of our bada movies. So if you look back at 1984, these movies are making more money than an Amitabh Bachchan star. That too, after Amitabh Bachchan is coming back after that accident, and the second accident happened that we didn't discuss actually. An hour burst in his left hand, and throughout this film he's got this left hand in his pocket. That's why those coats are slightly longer to cover his hand, and that looks like a style, but he's actually hiding the hand that is hurt.
Right.
So Amitabh Bachchan is coming back after a lot, right? And people are waiting for an Amitabh Bachchan release. Yet it's the number 3 or number 4 movie of that year. That says a lot about this, cyclical nature of cinema that we have.
Yeah, no, maybe these. What I was saying was just it's interesting. There's something about the zeitgeist which a South Indian sort of masala tends to tap into, over the top or whatever the stereotypes may be. I didn't think of it that way, that it happened at that time. But talking about economics, I think Prakash Mehra shot a lot of his sequences in very ordinary looking sets. So I guess that helps save money. And even if you see these Raat Paki, that it's supposed to be set in some kind of a submarine, but it looks like a Ganpati Pandal at best, you know. So it 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 yeah. So that and Prakash Mehra hardly does outdoor locations. If you think about Sharaabi, in an auditorium, in a bungalow, in a bar, it's all kind of indoors, eh, where it mostly plays out.
No, that was a very economical way of making films. I think all Prakash Mehra films are like that. Economical, fun, interiors, kahin zarurat hai to exteriors, right?
And what do you think is the film's legacy, its influence? We talked about like the parallels on Animal, and any other films that you can think about that Sharabi has, that Sharabi's influence kind of looms over?
Ye Jawani Hai Diwani mein there is this line, right? Nasha sharab mein hota to naachti. Use that line,
Yes, I believe so. That's a
right?
nod. Yes.
Yeah. But that also had some Shahenshah dialogues, and here and there they had some dialogues from 80s. But very distinctly, I remember Nasha Sharab Mein Hota To Naachti Botal was there, and one of my friends was saying, "Arey kya line hai, kya line hai?" Like, nahi, source material kahin aur hai.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we tend to forget how young, a lot of the people on social media are. And so, we might be able to recall some of the references or everything, but, the teenagers today, they probably haven't seen all these movies. So it's,
No, actually, I mean, a very sorry, I'll make an observation since I just remembered since you said young. Actually, I was realizing that when Prakash Mehra made Zanjeer, he was in his early 30s, 32, 33, and it probably released when he was 34 or 35, which means that at the time of making Sharabi, he was actually in his early 40s. Now, if you think about it, it's like a kid in Bollywood parlance. Like Karan Johar, who's considered to be like the perennial youngster, is touching 50 or probably more than 50 right now. So to that extent, I think that Manmohan Desai and Prakash Mehra are roughly the same in age. So it's very interesting that from their early 30s, they found this absolutely gem of a star, and they pretty much bet their entire careers uh, on this thing. And I mean, just as an extrapolation, I think that Amitabh does really well with younger directors. So be it Mukul Anand, which we briefly talked about, or Ram Gopal Verma, when he made his films with Amitabh Bachchan, he was probably in his mid to late 30s. Uh, then this Akhri Rasta, which is again a very big favorite of mine. K. Bhagyaraj was again in his early 30s. So I think there is these guys who have a slightly I mean, Prakash Mehra, Manmohan Desai is obviously older than Bachchan, but the rest of the people who are younger than him, I mean, to answer your question that what is the impact of Sharabi, I don't think it is an impact of Sharabi per se as a film, but that period, that whole mythology that grew between 82 to, I would say, I mean, it kind of fell a little bit and then again it peaked with Hum and all of that. That was fantastic. I think that period of Bachchan put in a lot of that heroism of, let's say, what, let's say, an Anurag Kashyap talks about, or what uh, his brother, Dabang director, the name is escaping me right now. I think they are all
Abhinay,
influenced by
Abhinav Kashyap.
Abhinav Kashyap.
yeah. So it is that period of that Bachchan mythology period that between 82 to 89, Amitabh Bachchan was literally God. Uh, as far as him, so I think that impact followed into the. I mean, Ram Gopal Verma has often said that, that Sridevi Amitabh phase of the mid 80s, when he was trying to run a video cassette parlor in Hyderabad and all of that, that impacted. So I don't think it is one film per se, but it is that period of Amitabh being this larger than life hero, which has spawned many uh, fans who have reinterpreted it in their own ways.
You forgot to mention Sujoy Ghosh there.
Bang on.
Sujoy, because Sujoy Bachchan really respects him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually like Aladdin a lot.
Himanshu.
Yeah.
Aladdin, I haven't watched.
When you see the Bachchan character in when you see the Bachchan character in Bunty or Bubbly, it is actually a rehash or reliving that that hero of the 80s who will come with a BD and throw a line which you will hang on to, and the last punch he will go, and he's not the hero, mind you, but he's the one with all the claps, so to speak. So that's, I think, the impact of that period.
Yeah, not to forget probably Sharaabi was probably the last Amitabh Kishore Kumar movie. I don't think there was any after that, because I don't think there was any after that. I mean, he sang for Mr. India, but again, that was so it was pretty much the last hurrah, so to speak, of the Amitabh Kishore combination.
Then you had all Talat Aziz and Munna Aziz and all. Munna Aziz and all.
After Amar Akbar Anthony, I think Kishore Kumar never sang for Amitabh in a Manmohan Desai movie. Even Naseeb, Amitabh's voice is Rafi.
Yeah.
So I think there was some fallout or something happened between Manmohan Desai and Kishore Kumar. So he never sang for Manmohan Desai after 1977, which is Amar Akbar Anthony. And of course, I don't think Kishore would have sung for anyone else. So it was, say, Rafi and whoever else. I don't think there was Kishore singing anything in Naseeb, for example.
अरे अनु मलिक से प्लेबैक करवाया यार अमिताभ के लिए.
I love that Mart song, dude.
Tufan also had some Anu Malik singing for Bachchan, right?
I mean, one of the things that, still is exciting about Bachchan, besides, the great actor that he is every time that he's working with new directors, right? I mean, it's just a sight to behold. Like the last time, I can remember this is like when in Jhund, when he worked with Nagraj. And the way that Nagraj just dealt with him, because Nagraj himself is like a huge fanboy. And, in spite of that, it's like a completely understated and, it's like a very anti-angry young man performance. And the way that they did that was fantastic for me. I mean, I loved it. So I'm always looking forward to whenever like Bachchan is working with newcomers or first-time directors. And, I hope that he continues to work with a lot of new directors.
Yeah, I mean, Rakesh Prakash Mehra, you can just continuously keep counting how many new directors he's worked with and how he's put his heart and soul into those films. Irrespective of film ka kya hua, kya nahi hua.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing that comes up in conversations with some of the directors that I've spoken with on the podcast, I remember RGV telling me, I also remember I had a conversation with Sujoy Ghosh a few years ago. And both of them mentioned this thing where they said, Bachchan is that guy on the set, who acts like he's the one who is hungry for a break. He's that guy, who values that project so much that as if his career depends on it. So imagine that after, so many decades and doing that. And that speaks volumes about the guy's attitude, towards work.
Wow, incredible.
This was great, guys. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate this. And like I said, this is a film that has grown on me over the years, and I wanted to do something for it on its 40th anniversary. And I'm so glad that I got great fans like you guys, who can speak so eloquently on this film. So really appreciate your time.
Great. When did it release, by the way? Was it Like, is
I
it
think
17th May.
mid-May,
17th May.
17th May, yeah.
May?
17th
So
May
Yeah.
it's
1982. Yeah.
Yes, so I'm
almost.
trying to time this around mid-May release.
Yeah.
So might be 2 or 3 days before that or so. Thank you so much,
Great.
guys. If you like the episode, do consider supporting the show. Your support will help me continue creating content like this. You can find the link for supporting the show in the show notes and on the pod website. Also, do share this episode on Twitter, Insta, or Facebook. And do subscribe, rate, and review the pod wherever you listen to your pods. You can follow me on Twitter and Insta at loveofcinemasf8. Feel free to reach out there or by email with your comments, feedback, and suggestions. You can find my email in the show notes. That's the episode. This is Himanshu signing off. And as always, thank you for listening to the Love of Cinema podcast.